All right, let's go to the Miami Dolphins. They started with Chop Robinson in the first round, the edge rusher out of Penn State, Patrick Paul, the tackle out of Houston, Jalen Wright, the running back out of Tennessee. Of course, they got the 4-3 running back. And then where'd the Dolphins end up on this consensus?
23rd,
right behind the Buffalo Bills.
This one feels harsh. I like this draft more than seemingly everybody else, except somebody called Ryan McChrystal from Sharp Football, who has an A. I like this draft. I think this is good.
Chop Robinson was the first one. I wouldn't say it was a reach, but consensus board using like the later 20s. It was the first one where it was like, all right, the edge rush. He went closer to the quote-unquote big three edge rushers than the consensus board would have implied.
Which I actually think was correct. I feel like Chop Robinson, we've talked about this a little bit before. All the Penn State guys, for some reason, pre-draft, it was like, why are those guys falling? Chop Robinson with his pass rush explosiveness and Olu Fashanu with his pass blocking shot. Like, why are all these guys slipping? And actually, they didn't. Once you got to the draft, Fashanu went top 10. Chop Robinson went 21. If you rewind all the way to the start, when you're like, who are the guys to look at? Those were people you would have identified in those areas, and actually that's exactly where they end up going. So I do feel like Chop Robinson, okay, his run defense isn't as good as the three guys that went ahead of him, right? On the other hand, his pass rushing kind of is. So maybe not Latu, but the other two, like Chop Robinson's got legitimate pass rushing ability, multiple seasons, back-to-back years with a PFF pass rushing grade of 91 or higher. Incredible explosiveness, the twitchiest of the three, I think. And I actually think that was the right sort of division to say you've got the big three, but then Chop Robinson is closer to those guys than he is everybody else. And that was essentially the dynamic that came to play. So for Miami to grab him there, I think is fine. It falls within the margins, in my opinion, of where he should have gone. Patrick Paul, the Houston offensive tackle, I've said before when we did our offensive line show, he was the next tier down guy that I would go for. You know, everyone's talking about Tyler Guyton or Jordan Morgan or Kingsley Suamataia. Patrick Paul is the guy I would have identified of that group as the one to take a shot on. I think his athleticism is elite. His size is perfect. He's got good tape. He's got good track record already. And then the guys in the mid-rounds I think are great additions as well. Jalen Wright, okay, it's not like it's a need, right? But Jalen Wright was the one explosive player in this draft where you're like, he finds a crease, he's gone. Those are the running backs that are succeeding right now, including all of the Miami backfield. Mohamed Kamara.
So they now have Raheem Mostert, Devin Achane, and Jalen Wright.
Yeah.
All 4-2, 4-3 running backs.
Right. All similar style. All explosive guys that can take it to the house once they get a crease. But then it kept going. Like Mohamed Kamara, really fascinating edge rusher from Colorado State. Crazy twitched up athlete. Now, hand usage doesn't happen a lot of the time. Just seems to forget he possesses them on some rushes, which isn't ideal. But again, like fifth round, if you're taking...
He also ran a 4.57.
That's what I'm saying. If you're a fifth round, you're taking a swing on one of the most athletic, twitchy pass rushers in the entire draft, that's good value. Malik Washington is a wide receiver, a pure slot guy that a lot of people loved in this draft. So I thought that was a really good draft by them.
Yeah, so I try to balance this, right? I don't think teams go in and say, okay, we're coming out of this with two edges and two receivers. So most teams are going to tell you they trusted their board. But other times, I think a lot of teams sometimes are influenced by what they just saw or how their season ended or whatever it might be. So Miami, whether they intended to do this or not, in a season where all their edge defenders got hurt, they add two. And guys that I think can contribute right away. At least Chop Robinson certainly going to contribute right away. But in the right role. I've always compared Chop Robinson to your Carl Lawson type, who's going to be an explosive pass rusher, doesn't play the run all that well. But that's fine. They've got Jalen Phillips. They've got Bradley Chubb. They brought in Shaq Barrett. And now you've got Chop. So you've got your maybe third down NASCAR package for Miami there. You need to be able to rotate in Miami, especially early in the season. So I think that's a great, contributor there. Throw Kamara into the mix as well. And then on the offensive line, they were one of those teams that probably was going to be in the market for a tackle on the turn there. And that's what they got. Patrick Paul, as far as how many times am I going to use the word developmental, but being there ready to start in year 2 or 3, Patrick Paul, I think he could do that at left tackle. And that's insurance immediately for Teron Armstead, who just, always ends up getting hurt. So I think that's great. They added the speed that they like. And then I just want to touch on Malik Washington a little bit, the receiver out of Virginia. Getting him at pick 184 in the 6th round. He is your classic shorter slot receiver. And nothing against Braxton Berrios, but for as explosive as Miami's offense was, how many times was it like, hey, Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft are getting a lot of targets when Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are taken away? I think Malik Washington is a perfect complementary slot as a good route runner with decent ball skills for his size as well. So I think he has a chance to contribute right away as well. Bring in Taj Washington as well to compete at receiver. So yeah, I'm a fan of Miami's draft, the players that they got, and the fits for this roster.
Agreed. I feel like the grading, not just ours, but across the board, has been harsh on Miami. I think that's a better draft.
Give your
than
grade.
people
What's
give
your
it credit
grade?
for. I would give that some variety of A. I think that's a really good draft. It's one of my favorite drafts.
A-?
Sure.
A- for Sam.